Do you wanna start playing Devourer DH today, but you have no idea how to start? Welcome to How to Devour, a guide for dumps.
You are not prepared!
First, let's take a look at our build. For this guide, we're gonna play the Annihilator hero talent, which is pretty simple with a passive rotation, focusing on a caster playstyle. The highlight of this build is our hardest hitting ability, Collapsing Star, which we'll talk about later. Right now on pre-patch, you can obtain up to 3 chips or dinars through a quest in Dornogal. With them you can buy powerful items from dungeons and the raid. I suggest you use them to get first of all the Antenna Trinket from Lumithar, then the Void Core Trinket from Fractalus, and the Void Glass Sword from Nexus King. If you are lucky enough to get one of those, make sure to buy the special boots from Soul Hunters, so you can buff even more your Reshi reps. For embellishments, I recommend you use Ascension on your weapons and Armor Binding on any other gear to buff it even more. If you already have 170 gear on your weapons and wrists or belt, just keep the embellishment part. For consumables, you're gonna use Flask of Alchemical Chaos, Algari Mana Oil on your weapons, Beledar's Bounty as your food, Authority of Radiant Power as an enchantment on both weapons, Tempered Potion, Invigorating Healing Potion, and an Ethereal Augment Roll if you have 100k gold to spare. Let's talk about status and resources. As a Devourer DH, we are a mid-range class with intelligence. We use haste and mastery as our main stats. Make sure to have about 30% haste and up to 60% mastery. If you're not sure about your stats, sim yourself on raid bots. As a Devourer DH, we use two main resources, Fury and Soul Fragments. You can track both of them on your frames. Fury as a pink bar that goes up to 120, and Soul Fragments as a purple bar below that goes up to 50. We'll talk about them later on the rotation section. Okay, before getting to the rotation, let's talk about our spells and abilities. You may notice that our bar is kinda empty, and that's because we mainly use only 4 spells at Devourer DH. And I'm gonna explain all of them. First of all, our main spell is Consume. Consume is a cast that you can walk while casting. And if you notice, it's gonna generate Fury and Souls. Alright? So it's one of our main sources of Fury and Souls generation. One thing about Souls, you can walk on top of them to consume them, or use the next ability that I'm gonna explain, which is Rip. I'm gonna build some souls here. You see on my frame that I have 7 souls. Rip on the basic form is gonna consume up to 4 souls. From 7 to 3, and now I just generated more. Now our third spell, which is our first Fury consuming spell, which is Void Ray. Void Ray consumes from 100 to 120 Fury. It does a channeling, you have to stay still, and it also generates souls for us. On AoE, it's our main source of souls generation. Now our fourth ability, and our so-called burst, we have Void Metamorphosis. To active Void Metamorphosis, you need 50 souls consumed, which you can see on the ability. You see the number 50 here? That means you collected 50 souls, and now you're ready to get into Void Transformation. Or Void Metamorphosis. Yeah, Void Metamorphosis. On Void Metamorphosis, all your other spells are gonna be upgraded. Consume will turn into Devour, Rip will turn into Coal, and Void Ray It's gonna remain Void Ray, but better. And Void Meta itself is gonna turn into Collapsing Star. Now, what changes from the upgraded skills from their basic forms? Consume, when turned into Devourer, is gonna reduce Cool CDR, and I'm gonna demonstrate for you. When we get into Void Meta, we have now Cool, and as I cast Devourer, it's gonna reduce the cast time here, you see? Cast it again. Alright. It's reducing the CDR. Rip turns into Cool, which is kind of the same. It still consumes 4 souls, but it does a bit more damage. I'll talk about more on the rotation section, but you don't have to cast Cold that much. Void Ray. Let's get into Void Meta again, so I can show it to you. Void Ray, on our basic form, is a Fury consuming spell. But when you get into Void Meta, it's not Void form. When you get into Void Meta, your Fury is gonna start draining. You know, you have to fight against it to remain on your form, you know. So from a Fury spending ability, Void Ray will allow us to have our Fury drain stop. So notice my pink bar, it's draining, right? And I'm fighting against it. When I cast Void Ray, it stops draining, and I build a lot of souls. Now we're gonna get to 30. When we get to 30 souls consumed inside our burst, we get Collapsing Star, which is a huge and long casting times ability that also stops Fury from draining. Now, one of our skills has a third upgrade, which is not bound to Void Transformation, Void Metamorphosis, forgive me, which is Rip turns into Cool, but he also turns into Eradicate. You're gonna notice, after I Void Ray, our Rip ability will turn into Eradicate. Here. It doesn't have a timer, it remains infinitely. And what it does, basically it's gonna be a frontal cone as a scythe, and it does a lot of damage. Alright. So, whenever you cast Void Ray, you're gonna have Eradicate. Now that I've explained all the abilities, let's get into the rotation. Let's talk about our rotation. I've separated rotation in 3 parts. The first one is the outside Void Meta rotation. Outside Void Meta, we have a simple goal: getting into meta. And to get into meta, we need 50 souls. In order to farm these souls, we're gonna be primarily using Consume until we hit 100 Fury. Once we reach 100 Fury, we're gonna Void Ray, Eradicate, and continue the loop. Consume, into Void Ray, and Eradicate. Now we have 50 souls and we are ready to burst. Now that we're ready to burst, you need to have a few things in mind. As I explained earlier, when we press Void Meta, our main spells are gonna change. Inside Void Meta, we'll be playing a minigame. Our Fury is gonna start draining until it reaches 0, and it kicks you out of Void form. To delay that, we're gonna use 2 spells. Void Ray, which has a set cooldown, and Collapsing Star, which costs 30 souls to cast. It's a perfect loop. We generate souls with Void Ray, we collect them with Eradicate, and spend them with Collapsing Star. That's our main rotation.
Revosilok mordalas, arkimas nosteros, arkim ziante mazre, nishtonen Mordas!
Once your fury goes to 0, you go back to the first rotation, building 50 souls to unlock Void Meta again. Now that you've learned about the two parts of our rotation, getting into Void Meta, then staying on Void Meta, you're ready to play Devourer. You can already stack your burst, and repeat. With that in mind, I'm gonna explain our hero talent, which is Annihilator. Annihilator plays kinda passively, and you only have to track this little meteor here. How this works: as you cast Consume, you're gonna have a chance to get a proc of this meteor. You see, 2, and it stacks up to 3. When it gets to 3, we're gonna get these arrows in our screen, and you just have to press RIP. Once you press RIP, Pull, or Eradicate, it's gonna release these meteors and deal damage, you see? Besides Consume, we also have a 100% chance to get a meteor proc, which is called Voidfall, from Void Ray. You see, we casted Void Ray and we got a stack. You don't have to think about it that much, you just need to know that when you see the arrows in your screen, you have to press RIP, Pull, or Eradicate, whatever is available. Okay, now that you've learned the full rotation and the basic loop, I'm gonna demonstrate in real time our full rotation from getting into Void Meta to leaving Void Meta, and I'm gonna explain step by step. Okay, first of all, let's build our souls with Consume. If we get a stack here, we're gonna use RIP to consume it, alright? We build 100 souls and Void Ray. We save this Eradicate proc until we get Voidfall. Now we get them together. I like to Void Ray before getting to Void Meta and Eradicate because it does a lot of damage. Now we press Void Meta, we Void Ray, and we're gonna consume Eradicate and our meteors at the same time. And that's a basic loop. If we get a proc, we cast it, otherwise we go into Void Ray. Now we save this proc until we get 3 stacks of meteor. There we go. We Collapsing Star, always on cooldown. Eradicate with the stacks. Now we're gonna get kicked in a bit, but we can survive a bit still. Alright. We won't get another one. But yeah, that's the main rotation. Congratulations, you have finished How to Devour, a guide for dumps. I hope I was able to teach you the basics so you can start playing Devourer today, and you're not dumb anymore. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions, and stay tuned for more guides and gameplay videos in the future. Thank you for watching, until the next time, bye!
Hello, my champion. What next? Tell me what you need.